One of the reasons I exist doing what I do now is I want to call leaders higher. Once you live a life of transformation, you legitimately want it for everybody.
Mr. Steven Scoggins is a faith-driven entrepreneur, systems architect, and business strategist who rose from homelessness to building and exiting multiple multi-million-dollar companies. And today he's the founder and CEO of Unstoppable Solutions under Scoggins International, where he helps entrepreneurs scale without sacrificing their identity, health, or purpose.
I became homeless out of pride and arrogance. All I had was a lot of resilience, a lot of faith, and one man who believed in me. Being humbled is actually the biggest blessing, right? I've gone through many of these transitions, right? And being humbled actually teaches us who you really are rather than the person who you think you want to be. There's nothing wrong with having aspirations and goals and stuff like that, but you can't achieve the aspirations and goals if you can't be a
Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors Podcast. As always, REAL stands for Real Examples Altering Lives. I'm your host, Sean Martin, and we've got an amazing example of how you can alter your life and accomplish absolutely anything. Mr. Steven Scoggins is a faith-driven entrepreneur, systems architect, and business strategist who rose from homelessness to building and exiting multiple multi-million-dollar companies. And today he's the founder and CEO of Unstoppable Solutions under Scoggins International, where he helps entrepreneurs scale without sacrificing their identity, health, or purpose. Welcome to the show today, brother. How are you?
Bro, it's so good to see you, man. I missed you, dude.
Yes, man. We were supposed to do this in person. First of all, I missed you too. We met in Atlanta. At Ken's event and automatically drawn to you from stage. But it was really when we sat down on the couch at the lake house the next day that I instantly connected with you. And my emotions always betray me. I wish we could zoom in on the goosebumps because that's what it was. It was a heart connection. And we sat there and we talked some raw truth. And that's why I've been dying to get you on. And even though we couldn't do this in person the first round, we will do it at your amazing studio shortly, I'm sure.
Let's go.
Tell us a little bit about your beginnings, brother. How did you start out? And obviously, the thing that sticks out of that bio for me is homelessness. So I want to touch on the beginning and go from there, and then we'll talk the business stuff, because I always say that stuff figures itself out when you're in the room with the right people.
Yeah, dude. Well, before we jump into that, I just want to congratulate you on an amazing book, dude. Super excited for you. First book out. Super excited. I've already ordered a few copies myself. And,
flattered. Thank you, brother.
Check it out. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Thank you.
You know, I get the question a lot as far as, kind of like, how'd you go from homelessness to, building, upwards of a 9-figure business and then exiting as a roll up and all this kind of stuff. But I think if I'm being completely transparent, honest, one of the reasons I exist doing what I do now is I want to call leaders higher. And it was an older man, a guy by the name of Steve Myrick, old man Myrick, as I like to call him, who honestly gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. After kind of betraying his trust, it was accidental, it wasn't intentional, but he continually called me higher. And someone asked me one time on a TV show one time, they said, "Hey, well, what's your legacy you want to create?" And I said, "I want to be Steve Myrick to as many people as humanly possible." Right? Because him calling me higher broke literally 400 years from the DNA, if you will, of my last name and kind of the people in my line and all this kind of stuff. I have this old adage to say, become the one to inspire the one to become the many. Right?
Beautiful.
So it's a way of giving back and things of that nature. And I know that you're experiencing this now. Is once you live a life of transformation, you legitimately want it for everybody.
Yeah.
And we don't realize how much we're in our own way a lot of times. And, so at the end of the day, I became homeless out of pride and arrogance. I didn't want to ask for help when I should have asked for help. I turned away wisdom and advice when I actually needed it, when it was given in a very wise capacity. It actually led me to understanding this thing I'm now calling the 5 constraints, right? So if you look at business, leadership, professional career, family, relationships, You see a lot of patterns, and I know some of our mutual friends, obviously Tony and Dean, they're big into making sure that you've got the pattern recognition, right? Well, the pattern recognition for me helped me understand these 5 constraints. And on the surface, people will tell you that lack of sales, lack of leadership, lack of market penetration, lack of product fit are a lot of the causes that businesses and stuff fail, right? And leadership fails in many cases. But when I looked at my journey, right, over the last 30 plus years of building companies from the scratch. And when I say scratch, I mean, I had no credit or trash credit when I first started. I had no capital of any kind. I had no professional training of any kind, right? All I had was a lot of resilience, a lot of faith, and one man who believed in me, right? And sometimes that's really all it takes to help call yourself to that higher standard. When you look at the 5 constraints, you very quickly realize they're very, very simple. And these are true. Every major decision, poor decision I made in building companies, my leadership, my relationships, no matter what it was, every major time, I kid you not, cost me millions of dollars, cost me a divorce or two. Like, you know what I'm saying? It cost me these things that had I known better, I'd have done better, right? The first constraint is called arrogance. Arrogance is the ability to basically live in a place where you're actually chasing your worth. You're constantly chasing, like, hey, I need to prove myself. I need to buy the thing. I need to become the thing. I need to perform. I need to, outshine everybody. And that unfortunately ends up building this element of arrogance, which by definition has you repel wisdom coming your way. So what is the opposite of arrogance? Well, the opposite of arrogance is humility. Well, how do you become humble without becoming railroaded?
Correct. Or being humbled by God or the world. Or
Well, that's the thing is I actually believe it's being humbled is actually the biggest blessing, right? I've gone through many of these transitions, right? And being humbled actually teaches us who you really are rather than the person who you think you want to be.
Yeah.
Like, there's an authenticity to an authentic person who has been humbled and been through a few things that people tend to gravitate towards. However, if you live your life and you're constantly just putting yourself out there, and I've done this, right? So I'm not casting any shade on anybody, but you're like, well, look at me. I've done this, and this. I have this, and this. I have all these different aspects of my life that look shiny on paper, and that repels people. It doesn't really draw people in, not authentically.
It's
right?
It's so funny you mentioned that, because I was just at a recent event with some very high level people, and we had breakout sessions. And I had met up with a friend later that day who wasn't in my breakout. Yeah. And we talked about the breakouts. And our breakout was deeply, deeply impactful. It had nothing to do with business, despite the ton of money that we pay to be there and the amazing entrepreneurs at the table. I led with some stuff I was struggling with in my own relationships and marriage. And it just opened the door for everybody. I'm talking about your favorite entrepreneur's favorite entrepreneur was sitting there telling stories about his past and just being as authentic, real, and open as possible, which then opened the door for everybody else. And I was just so blessed that I led with that and got to see everybody's heart. And the other person was at a breakout where it was, I'm going to cop this car, I'm going to get that watch, I'm going to do this, it was like a pissing contest. Yeah. A professional pissing, a polite pissing contest, but that's what it is. That comes out of ego and insecurity, because they're still chasing the thing, and that's where you and I connected. Because one of my friends chases the things, and you saw it immediately, and we talked about it, and they're just not in that place yet. Where that
the interesting thing about that
enough.
is one of the things I've noticed about the people, I'd say, and again, I am this person, like I have been this person.
Yeah, you definitely were, and you shared that. So
so
we're not judging.
For sure.
And it sucks that we even have to fucking say that for the people that don't get it. Like, I don't have to say that to you or saying that to the audience, because we don't want to offend anybody or have them turned off. But there's a lesson to have here.
Well, look at it this way. If you can take that, look, I'm using myself as the example. When I operated that way, I repelled. However, once I changed how I saw myself, right? And I finally realized I have nothing to prove to anybody. God has already done the impossible through me once already, if not many times. like I'm a good person with a good heart who really wants to serve the world and wants to serve the person in front of me and all this kind of stuff. What happens is you end up creating attraction and then multiplication. So everything, all the cool things that God has taught you how to do as a person of faith, right? He's taught you how to do those things. He's put these gifts, these skill sets and stuff like get amplified in the service of others. And you end up attracting more when you think the other thing is going to lead you to more, right? But more comes from the inside, not the outside.
Right.
Which really kind of takes us back to the constraints a little bit. You look at the second constraint, it's ignorance, right? It's not willing to be teachable, right? It's not willing to let your guard down. The reason you got to experience that beautiful moment in your breakout session is because when you lowered your guard in a safe place, you opened yourself up to be taught by people at a much higher level who can teach you how to not just operate at a financial higher level or at a personal brand higher level, but also as a father, right? As a husband, right? As a giver of light to the world. Right. But most of us, I learned these constraints by living them, right? Repeatedly.
The best teacher.
You know what I'm saying? But when you begin to understand the importance of being humble and also being teachable, you begin to do what I like to refer to as becoming one part lion and one part lamb. You see, a lot of times I use this contrast because all of us have a tendency to be either all lion or all lamb. All lion being aggressive, ego-driven, all this kind of like it's almost like dominance as an element of control. And I consider that the immature lion. However, I consider the mature lion someone who's courageous, someone who's a protector, someone who will stand up in the service of others. And I know you saw me kind of do this before, in the service of others when I feel like an impact needs to be made.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you have the immature lamb, someone who's a people pleaser and a pushover and feels like they have to prove themselves. And that's also an element of chasing worth, right? Then you have the mature lamb, right? Which is someone who is compassionate, empathetic, energetically aligned with other people. And I know some of the people you hang out with, and you know as well as I do, those people integrate both.
Yeah.
Right? They integrate the courageousness and the boldness and the willingness to tell the truth alongside of having compassion and empathy and love and character and communicate that. And as a result, they have no lack of gain, right? So this alignment process is a full level of integration. And at least for me, I was all lion. Like when I started my first company, Homeless and all this kind of stuff, I was all grit, all tenacity. It was like either you're on board or you're not. Get out of my way.
Yeah, you got that chip on your shoulder, that boulder on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Nothing removes
a better word. Maybe in a mountain.
Nothing removes the chip from one shoulder like the feeling of success. And you hadn't had that feeling yet. And even when people chase the success that they've equated to dollar amounts, it doesn't feel complete. So they continue to chase, not knowing that the answers are here. And this is all a deflection to not look inward. And maybe there's pain there that they're just not willing to honestly look at.
Well, here's the crazy part. You can only resist that for so long before it crashes in on you. I'll share with you, I think I shared with you before, but my loneliest moment was actually, and my loneliest, emptiest moment was actually not while sitting on an overpass when I was homeless. My loneliest moment was actually sitting in a home in Utah when on paper I had everything that you could think of that I wanted, but I didn't have me. I didn't have the internal version of me, right? I kept swinging from this dominant thing to this pushover person. I had no internal congruence, no internal alignment, no internal ability to understand who I was at my core. And when I began that work, things began to radically shift. Not just in forms of quote unquote paper success, but quote unquote what I would refer to as inner alignment success. Knowing who I am, why I'm here, what I'm supposed to do with it, and how that will actually give us back to the world. In fact, I'll share this with you real fast. The third constraint is called impatience. Now, most people think that the opposite of impatience the opposite of impatience is actually patience. It's not. What I've discovered is the opposite of impatience is actually presence. Being exactly where your feet are, not trying to look too far ahead. There's nothing wrong with having aspirations and goals and stuff like that, but you can't achieve the aspirations and goals if you can't be effective right now in the moment. Whether that's having, dude, I love this. This is one of those things that I got to witness on you. Your little man, right? We're at the lake house, right?
I forgot.
We're talking, we're jamming. He comes up to you and he's like, daddy, da 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 da. And you were like, hey man, can you just a moment? And you turned to him and you gave him that focus, presence, intention. Those moments will set up his entire self-worth for the rest of his life because his dad didn't push him away. Think about how many times we get busy as adults and we're like, we got this going on, we got that going on, we got that going on. And our child comes to us and they're like, well, hey, look at me. I want to show you what I colored. I want to tell you what I just did at school. I want to tell you where my heart's broken. And we're like, well, just wait a minute. I got to focus over here. And what we're actually saying subconsciously to that child is you don't matter as much as this thing over here. You see what I'm saying? And this is where the power of presence comes into play and why it's so stinking powerful is when you can learn to be where your feet are, you'll be more effective where your feet are. Therefore, you'll have less things to break through, less things to bust through, less challenges. As a result, you end up moving from forced, which I have done many times, to flat out flow. Right? So I'm very into I think I shared this with you on the couch at the lake house, but I think it's good for the audience to hear, is my adult son at 22 years old after a divorce came to me and he said, hey, you were an amazing dad. You were an amazing husband for my eyes, but if there's one thing you could work on, just one thing that would make all the difference to everybody. I'm like, you got my ear, kid. Right? He said, if you could learn to be more present when you're present. Think about that. Here's a young man who watched me succeed on paper. He watched me fight the good fight, be resilient in business, which is a necessity, right? He watched me go through hard stuff, good stuff, all the things. These kids got to travel all over the place. They got to enjoy a nice lifestyle, a secure lifestyle, a safe lifestyle. And here's the crazy part. Especially as men, as providers, we think that that's the answer. You know what he told me in that moment? He goes, none of that stuff's as important as your and my time. So imagine if you had the power of presence in your relationships, your spousal relationship, you have the ability to shut it all down and focus on that date night or on that quarterly getaway or focus on that, just like I watched you do with your son. You see what I'm saying?
First I got to say thank you. I'm supposed to make you cry, not vice versa.
I'm sure we'll do the roles when I get you out here. Get you out here.
It's so meaningful. So thank you, because I had forgotten that moment, and we forget so many of the little moments that shape the lives that we impact. Most importantly, our children. In this particular instance, so I can't thank you enough for reminding me of something that I would have just not noticed, and therefore, because you pointed it out, I can now be more cognizant, aware, and intentional when I do have those moments where I do tell them not to. So, there's plenty of moments where I tell them I don't have the time because if it were up to them, it'd be all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, brother, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. I want to share one super quick thing on that same subject matter. A good friend of mine, Anthony Trucks, who you may know by now as well. I went through a pretty dark season. I went through a difficult season in 2021, literally as I was about to host a 3-day live event called Transform You. I teach 13 keynotes back to back with my own stuff that I've learned over the years. And the funnels broke. And then my wife at the time came to me, wanted a divorce, and out of the blue, there's a whole story behind that we don't have time to get into. But one of the things that happened was I sent a 45-minute video out to all the speakers that were part of that event. Evan Carmichael, Anthony Trucks, Tom and Lisa Bilyeu, Amberly Lago, Apolloni Ponte, and a bunch of others, right? And I was just like, guys, I'm kind of lost. Anthony stopped what he was doing and quickly sent me a voice text. And it was very empathetic. He was present for me in that moment. And he's like, look, if you want to jump on a call, I'd like to talk to you. Now, at some point in time, I'd love to introduce you guys if you guys don't know each other, because I think you guys would jam for sure. But Anthony told me something that was really powerful in that moment. He said, Stephen, because he had been divorced and then remarried the same partner, went back and remarried the same partner and began to rebuild their life. And one of the things that he told me was, hey, so I have a rule, and this is my rule. My family knows, I've sat them down, my family knows that when I'm on the road, meaning I'm speaking, I'm teaching, I'm right, he's doing the work, right, the scale, and help people, I'm there. But my friends, my family, and everybody else knows that when I come home, I'm at football games. Everything is shut down. What he did was he gave me a very intentional practice of full presence. Because we think that, you just said it, it's like our kids need all this time. What they do need, they actually don't need more quantity, they need more quality. Mm-hmm. They'll rather take an hour of focused, intense, like one-on-one. I used to take my kids on, my sons and daughter, on like kind of like quasi date days or date things, where I literally shut the phone, put it over here. My kids were just here over Thanksgiving, and they were already talking about, hey, you haven't touched your phone the entire day. You see what I'm saying? Like, they notice.
God puts the right people in the right conversations in your ear at the right time. So tomorrow, my daughter and I have our first ever overnight stay. We're going to go to New York City. We're pulling her out of school. We're going to see what she wanted to, which is a magic show on Broadway. We're going to go do dinner. We're going to see the tree. We're going to, do all the things, just her and I.
Yeah.
And I would have done it just like I would do any day. But now, because of this conversation, I'm going to be intentional and leave the phone off, or make the commitment to not touch it for a considerable part of tomorrow. Obviously, it's a work day and we run businesses, but presence, quality versus quantity.
Yeah.
Always, God, thank you.
I'll share one more super quick thing, and I'll share the last couple of constraints. But Ed Milet, I helped him do his book launch back in 2022, I think it was. Did Max Out Live at my place, and as a result, he ended up becoming a friend. And one of the things that he shared with me in a private group of about 10 people, John Maxwell was there, Ed Milet was there, John Gordon was there.
What a room full of nobodies, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, we've been blessed, but it's funny, as you call yourself higher, you automatically activate different relationships at a higher level, right?
Higher level.
So this is why I'm like, hey, guys, girls, ladies, come on, come higher.
This is crazy, because when I met Tony Robbins, I'm still somebody who's full of doubt, full of fear, and that person is still doubtful and fearful that you're looking at and speaking with.
Yeah.
But when I got to physically meet him in Maui, and I tell the story and I got the video, it was such a validation that I belonged on the level that I always believed that I belonged on. Yeah. Because it was instant connection. There was a humming over my body, and I didn't know what the heck was going on. And hey, Tony, how you doing? I'd ask you, but I can feel you, with his big voice. And I'm like, holy shit.
He puts that massive hand out for you.
You too? And then I put my hand, my little big hand, on his chest.
Your hand's twice the size of mine. Imagine mine, dude.
Immediately, I put my hand on Tony Robbins' heart. And he puts his hand on my shoulder, and we're two brothers. You're not Tony. I'm not Sean. I'm not part of your community. We are
you're two elevated souls.
Instantly connected. And I needed that validation. Yeah. And I think so many people don't understand the power of the environment that they choose to stay in. Show me your 5 friends, I'll show you your net worth, or, forget the net worth. The sum of your friends, show me your friends, I'll show you who you are. And I have friends that say, I don't really believe that. And I'm like, well, that's why you're going to stay where you are. Because you have to let go of that.
It's true. It's true.
It doesn't mean you can't love them. You can love as much as you want. But time, energy, sharing information, you can't share huge dreams with someone with small dreams. Yeah. You just can't.
Very true.
You can't. So this amazing room you're in, I'm sorry.
We're that's why we vibe, because we're obviously we're all trying to call leaders to a higher level. And I think that's the gift. But one of the things that Ed shared in this moment, because they were saying, well, what's the most impactful thing you've ever done with your family or shared with your kids? And, he's very vulnerable and talks a lot about his relationship with his dad and how beautiful it became, but how not as beautiful it was when they first started. But he made a commitment when his kids were born. And he said from the day they were born, right before he cut the umbilical cord, he began a practice that he literally carried through their entire life, all the way to date. And the practice is called, "Let me tell you about you." Okay. So the practice is he would have his daughter Bella or his son Max or whatever, right? Not just when they were born, but throughout the course of their life, when they would have these presence moments, when they'd have these little date days or these moments, he would look at him dead in the eye and he said, "Let me tell you about you. You're smart, you're intelligent, you're strong, you've got immense potential. I can't wait to see what you do with your life." Like, and Max is like a championship golf player. I mean, like he's amazing, right? And I took that back to my own family because we don't do that. So it's hard. So one of the things I've realized is it's hard for, and I'll speak for men. I won't speak for women just because I'm not one. It's hard for a man to give away a gift like that when he's never experienced it. Now, Tony would, I think Tony and Ed would probably mention that a lot of his first belief, and from just listening to him, again, he would have to share his heart, but came from his random interaction with Wayne Dyer on a beach.
Yes.
And Wayne Dyer spoke into Ed.
Spoke life
before his
into
kids
him,
were born. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, you meet Tony and Tony's like, "I feel you. Like I can sense you."
I didn't see that as being fed into, but right in that moment, that validation fed into it. And I even acknowledged in my book, in the acknowledgments in the beginning, that moment, because it was the validation from the father I never had.
Yeah. Well, and see, now you're going to have this moment with your daughter. And what I'm inviting
you
use
into
is like, as you go
me.
in, just be thinking about all the qualities that you love about her, all the things that you see in her, all the things. Imagine if your children, your team, your leadership, your relationships are essentially buds, right? So you got a flower with a stem and a bud, right? And essentially the words of affirmation and encouragement and presence and stuff open a leaf ever so slowly, right? And as they become adults, they're full-fledged gifts. They're full-fledged bouquets, right? When you do that, you've finally broken most of what I consider generational issues, generational legacy issues, because you chose to be the one to change yourself in such a way that inspires them to just be the best versions of themselves.
Right.
And so what will happen? I saw this quote one time. It was online. It says, and I actually sent it to my daughter right away. And it says, "I never want my daughter to think I can't tell my dad. Instead, I want to be the kind of dad where my daughter says, I don't know what to do, but my dad will. Let me reach out to him right away." You see the contrast?
Yeah.
Like one is based in fear, one is based in love.
Yeah.
So if you look,
every time.
Dude, yeah, it's powerful. But just so I don't rip the audience off, the fourth constraint is insecurity.
You're good, man, because I'm ADHD.
Yeah, the fourth is insecurity, and we all have different versions of insecurity. For your audience, they may or may not know if they've seen me at all, but I'm 5 foot nothing. I'm 5'5", maybe 160 pounds. Now I work out all the time and all the good things, but I'm not 6 foot tall, huh?
You're jacked as fuck, though.
I appreciate that. I would like to believe my soul was 10 foot tall, right?
Your heart is, brother.
So you chase being seen and heard and all the things, right? What I've discovered is insecurity. If you look at the word "in," it's inside of you. So basically, your security is based on inside of you, not based on outside of you, which is where these things like me chasing wealth and me chasing cars and toys and whatever. Doesn't mean I don't have aspirations and goals, but it's like I realize that by just chasing, to your earlier point, I'm avoiding the work that actually would make me whole.
Yeah.
So I was recently at FounderCon. I was asked to close the conference. And I had this epiphany while I was on stage about middle way through. And I just touched my heart and held my heart. And I had this epiphany. I said, I am whole. And for the first time, I knew it was true. So
and you're not a spring chicken.
Yeah, well, I mean, I turned 50 this year, right?
Let that be the lesson here, because I think we're in a generation where they really think that shit is going to work out in a few years.
Yeah.
You're turning 50. You've exited huge companies. You've been divorced multiple times. You have grown kids. You've been homeless. It's a freaking journey, people.
Yeah.
You are not going to get there because Instagram showed you in a year this guy was driving a Lambo, which is probably rented.
It's rented or his buddy has it. I know of a thought leader that used to go to a buddy's house and record all of his content with somebody else's stuff. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, well, that's what we're up against, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's changing, right? I think I would say that the age of the guru is basically dying right now because people have been over marketed too. They've been promised things that they didn't get results, and so therefore they're skittish of everything else under the sun. Yep. New people on the scene that may or may not have the heart of service and can really get them results and all this kind of stuff, and it's because of betrayal, right? I came to you for a solution. You took my money, but you didn't actually help me solve it. Now, some could argue, and I would argue this from time to time because I think it's a little different. That you got to put in the work. So,
absolutely.
A great teacher can show up, but you still got to put in the work, right?
100%. I always say, I go all this self-development. I had somebody joke with me. We were outside of the room at one point, during a break, and they looked at me and they go, "You're a really bad student. You're almost never in the room." And I said, "Yeah, but you know what the difference between me and most people is? I take action." And that's the difference. Some people have been they're professional mastermind students, and they're sitting and they're jotting notes and they're meticulous, but no action is being taken. Yeah. So no lessons are being learned and no muscles are being strengthened. And you're preparing for the preparation of the prepared moment that you're not going to experience until you have the moxie to just say, you know what? I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And that takes courage.
1,000%. Well,
and
I think that's why...
Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think that's why the understanding the word insecurity and understanding that search to figure out what the inner search that needs to happen to actually have internal security is so vital.
Yeah.
Because if you're honest with yourself, you can use the opposite of insecurity is compounded confidence. Like you look at one time where you thought you were going to be crushed and God, the divine showed up or a mentor showed up or whatever and moved you to the next level. I mean, you've already shared a few of those stories with me. Yeah. But these are the types of things that have to actually occur if in fact you actually want to achieve your best life.
I'm going to set you up here. So I also, ego is insecurity. I've never heard it explained in word, which is beautiful. I'm going to steal that, borrow, because I'm sure you borrowed it.
Just tell people that your brother Stephen helps you understand it. I'm just kidding.
There you go. I'll give you credit, brother. And Tony gives us ego is truly just insecurity. Same difference. So we've got the 4. I want you to reiterate the first 4 and then dive into the 5th, if you don't mind. That's what I meant by I'm going to set you up for this.
Sounds good. All right, let's rattle them off real fast. Arrogance, ignorance, impatience, fear, and insecurity. So you get all 5 of them at once. How about that? The last one is obviously fear. How do you overcome fear? You overcome fear with intentional practices of unconditional faith. Intentional practices of unconditional faith. In other words, so much of what you experience is solely based on your mindset and how you see it. So Wayne Dyer used to say something along the lines of, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Right? So let's say you've got an adversity standing in front of you right now and you're scared. You're scared of success. You're scared of failure. You're scared it's not going to pan out. You're scared of what's going to happen to your future. You're in fear. Your nervous system goes into fight, flight, or freeze. So you become dysregulated. And because you're dysregulated, you're going to make a decision out of chaos. When you make a decision out of chaos, you actually create more chaos. Oh, yeah. However, if you can learn to slow things down, you can slow things down to speed things up by simply actually becoming present in the moment, breathing through the challenge, looking at it from a different perspective that actually serves you. So let's say I've got a financial deal that's falling apart, but I'm not expecting to fall apart. Like I had my hopes that this thing was going to work out. Well, you got 2 choices. You can either immediately revert to fear and go into scarcity, or you can simply trust that this is actually happening for you, right? That another deal is going to present itself, which has been what I have seen. When I have let go early, the better thing shows itself earlier, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, you got out of your own way and you allowed things to flow in their natural order. Now, you've been able to accomplish this through faith, and your Christian faith more specifically.
Sure.
It was such a beautiful experience going down to Atlanta, meeting Ken for the first time, him being gracious enough to meet my family and I the night before, never having met, just through Andrew and the connection. And then my family being in the room when I shared the stage with Andrew.
That was awesome.
And then sharing the lake house and this amazing story that, you reminded me of. So that was the first time I had ever been in a faith-based mastermind room.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And then Jake just going up there and giving us
I'm actually
that.
flying out to see Jake next week, so yeah.
Dude, again with the goosebumps. I'm such a freaking sucker for my emotions. But him and the wife came out to, him and Nikki came out to the South Bronx to shoot with us. And it was the coolest thing ever. They were flying down to the Caribbean, and they always do an extended layover in New York, being that they're coming all the way from Cali, I believe. And they were in New York, and they shot up to the South Bronx to come shoot, and we shot an amazing episode, which should be released in the next couple weeks.
Dude, you have to text me the link to it. I want to check it out.
Yeah, amazing people. I'll definitely tag you when we get there. So, faith, Christianity, has it always been part of your life? Have there ever been times when you were lost? And then some of the experiences that you've had to unlock this incredible faith and belief that you have in your Lord and Savior.
That's so good. So I'll say, the short answer is yes and. So grew up
as long as it's not yes but.
Yeah. No, I grew up in a faith-based environment early on. Obviously, when you grow up, 9 years old, I'm kind of forced to be kind of like the head of the household. I had a G.I. Joe in one hand, a transform in the other. When my grandmother came to me and asked me to kind of help her, which was about a 2-year journey before she passed away from cancer. So I began making meals for my brother and I and her. I began physically being her crutch, walking. She would use me to walk around the house while she was going through chemo. This is like the mid 80s. So it's like the chemo was just as dangerous as the cancer kind of thing. And I started that journey all the way through about 17 or 18, which included some of the elements towards the tail end of the homeless journey that really had me question everything. So 9 years old, about the same time my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, I had this spiritual epiphany. I requested to be baptized and the whole deal, and I went through with that. And then I trusted in faith for 2 or 3 years that God was going to somehow save my grandmother. When he didn't, I think I turned away from him. And then I experienced what people would now refer to as church hurt. In fact, I feel like, and I'm just being honest with people, that we often judge God by mankind's errors. So mankind creates toxicity or these environments, and we use that as a gauge of who God is, and that's not how it's actually not been my discovery process. So I actually went through a very angry phase where I was about 4.5 to 5 years as a very dedicated atheist.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest. A lot of that was anger. A lot of that was wounds, father wounds, mother wounds. Obviously times I was asking God to do a miracle and he didn't show up. What I would tell you now is every last one of those things have now created the man that you see before you. And hopefully the man that in 5 years will look completely different than the man sitting in front of you now, right? I've learned that the journey is I'll say it this way. I've been telling people this. In fact, we had Ken, Jake, and a bunch of other people here at Safe Haven a few weeks ago. And I told them one of my biggest discoveries was when God opens the door for a forge, walk in willingly. Most of our pain and discomfort comes from the resistance of change. Like we don't want whatever we know as our standard to turn into a new standard. And because of that, we resist it. And every time you resist it, pain increases until you're so exhausted and you let go fully, you can actually walk into the forge willingly. And that's when the work gets done. And that's when the blessings after the work gets done actually happen. So
you talking about me?
Huh?
I said, are you talking about me?
Not intentionally. My grandfather is probably 23 years old. And he'd always been a person of faith. In fact, he called me from the day I was born, even through the atheistic journey. his little soul winner. He would introduce me to people as his little soul winner, right? Not even knowing what the heck that means. I think I have a better understanding now. I remember being 22 and him actually calling me that and me getting angry with him. And he probably said one of the most profound things that I've ever heard someone say. He said, son, when you stop looking for the answers that you want and actually start looking for the truth, you'll find your way. A lot of us will pursue our biases before we'll pursue truth. So I'll give you just a little snippet. Faith in general is an onion. It's multiple layers. On the surface layers, it's like, hey, I've realized I need help. I'm willing to admit where I've done wrong. I'm willing to accept how I could change, right? So that's like layer one. You start getting into layers 5 and 6. Here's one that'll blow your mind. There are 77 generations from Adam to Jesus. Doesn't matter if you go from Adam to Jesus through Mary or Joseph. Okay, both Mary and Joseph actually come out of King David's line, which was prophesied about 780 years before it happened, in detail in the book of Isaiah, and there's another book, Ezekiel as well. In that 77 generations, there's a firstborn or a secondborn male, right, all the way through. A Paleo-Hebrew character, right, looks like an ox head, a house, etc. However, in new terms, it would, there's an actual, letter, essentially a Hebrew letter. That Hebrew letter has a number value, has a sentence value, has a letter value, and has a phonic value. Okay, so you can actually take Hebrew letters and actually use it like sheet music, for example, okay? Take all of these different levels, and one of the things that happens is if you just go from the firstborn person from Adam all the way to Jesus, and you just take that person's first name and the meaning of their name, it reads like a narrative. And in the Bible, in Isaiah 45, it says, I am God, there is none like me, for I declare the end before the beginning. The very first word in the Torah or the Bible, which is where the Bible comes from, the Genesis, right, is translates to in beginning, not in the beginning. It's a word called Bereshit. Bereshit, when actually done in Paleo-Hebrew, actually shows the piercing of a hand. I actually dumped all this into AI one time just for fun. I also had a bunch of Jewish friends that are rabbis. I didn't tell them what I was doing. I just wanted to validate that was true. Because I love them and I love to have these discussions with them. And all about it validated that. And then because AI is obviously a big deal, right? I know you said Dean just had an incredible launch. Congratulations, Dean. That's awesome. But AI told me the probability was 10 billion to the 10th power of that actually being orchestrated organically.
Wow.
In other words, I think I convinced the AI that like
God is real.
When you're trying to, he's like the probability is so large. So what I'm getting at is whether you're a person of faith now or you're interested in discovering more about it, I would say go for it, but go for it without bias. Go for it without wounds. Go for it without injury. Go for it without having to prove something. Just go search, right? Mankind has done more damage to mankind than anything else. There's Gandhi said this. Gandhi said, I love your Jesus, but I'm frustrated by your Christians. And it's because this we feel like, again, this all comes from insecurity, all comes from ego, all comes from low lack of self-worth. We feel like we have to elevate ourselves above another to have value. The moment that one thing stops, you'll start seeing heaven on earth.
I love it. Brother, it's been such an honor to have you on the show. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your energy, and your faith with us, most importantly, because I think it is that faith, whether it comes from a mentor who believed in you early on, or a faith in something that at first you couldn't explain and resented at some point because it didn't perform the way you expected it to. And that is the relationship challenge that we all have. It's the expectation. So I love that you said the bias and how we focus on the bias. And I want to tie that in with relationships, because if you're looking for something wrong, you will always find it. More simply said, you will get more of what you focus on, good, bad, or otherwise. So if you want to step into religion, you want to step into faith, take the human element out of it, because it is easy. Man is flawed, and it is going to be easy for you to discern hiccups or just the general belief that, listen, how many thousands of years old, if I told you a story and you told someone a story and it was 3 stories removed, it would already change. So it is a higher frequency of understanding that we are grains of sand in an almost unexplainable miracle that is life. I don't know if I went around in too much of a woo-woo circle there, but the relationship that you have with yourself is also the same. We tend to look at all the things we have as flaws and manifest how they will keep us from attaining these miracles that God has planted in our subconscious mind, these limitless things that we believe we're capable of. And we sour it before we even get started because we choose to look at the negativity and focus on the bias. So thank you for ending on that note, brother, because I think it gives people the courage and the power to just say, okay, well, what can I control? And the only thing we can control is this and this. We can't control anything else. So thank you, brother. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to see you again sooner than later. But please, before you go, let our audience know how to find you, what you're doing, and how they can benefit from your amazing message.
Man, you know, first of all, I love you as a brother, and I can't thank you for the opportunity to hang out with you and share with you. I'm super stoked about the new books, like super stoked. Everybody, if they haven't already grabbed a copy, needs to go snag it, go and get the pre-sale. But I think the easiest thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help leaders understand really where they're at, because until you have a baseline of awareness, you can't really have a baseline of elevation. So I created an assessment that you can find at stevenscoggins.com/leader. So stevenscoggins.com/leader if you want to take the assessment. So it's about 10 minutes, but it gives you a very detailed breakdown of kind of where you're at, what the next steps could be, and hopefully encourage you on your journey. I'm also like super active on Instagram. I'm all the channels, but I'm actually there quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to be my thing too. And I refuse to download TikTok. Sorry. I let the team manage that one.
Yeah, dude. So, so either one of those resources, Steven with a PH, Scoggins with Scoggins. But yeah, dude, thank you so much for having me, bro. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, brother. Always good to see you. Have a blessed day. Create a great one, and happy holidays to you. Enjoy that amazing home you're making a home, and that amazing studio you just built out. I can't wait to fly down and share that with you, and obviously some time and some dinner and some good conversation, brother. Thank you.
Come on, bro.
Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to have Steven's information in the bio. Make sure you check him out. He is amazing, not only on social, but visit that website. And it's PH Steven, just for everybody to know, because I want you to take the first step in assessing yourself, because this is a man who's been through the fire, came out the other side, forged in steel, and now realizes that his purpose is to be the light for people like yourself. And even in a conversation with an equal like me, I have learned a few things about how I can be a better man tomorrow for my daughter, for my children. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, my friend.